brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Now it's sippin' time.
Hello and welcome to this Sips episode where everything good in life is worth discussing. We are the best thing on at 2 a.m. and we thank you for choosing to listen to us instead of, I don't know, Zane, what do you think would be on at 2 a.m. against us?
The neighbors fighting upstairs?
Alternative weapons and your ultimate slingshot story.
Sounds about right.
Hey, this is good old boy Mike, and joining me here on this episode is good old boy Zane.
Hey, it's good old boy Zane from Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, our sip segments are all about wine, distilled spirits, tea, and coffee. Today, we're going to talk about the bourbon. We're talking about the Bourbon Classic Festival, which was held in Louisville, Kentucky. It's there each year, and this is actually becoming the big event for bourbon locally. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the products we got to try this week, as well as discuss some trends that are kind of continuing and kind of emerging, and just kind of a really good conversation all the way around. So I'm really looking forward to this today. How about you, Zane?
Absolutely, and I would say that this is probably one of the leading whiskey events in the U.S. At this time, probably in the top 5.
Yeah, definitely. We go to a lot of really great festivals, and there are a lot of good aspects about this particular festival. I think certainly being in the heart of the land of spirits and bourbon, being made, right there in the Louisville area, I think that allows a lot of people to probably attend and bring a lot of their products, as well as a lot of who's who, people that you actually get to meet that. You may be at another festival and get to taste the products, but are you really pressing the hand with Mary Ann Barnes and saying hello, for the first time? No, you're not doing that. When it's the festival in California, that's for sure. So there's definitely this is very much a social gathering as much as it is tasting the products themselves. Well, this festival has kind of a lot of unique twists to it. We're going to talk about a couple of pieces out of this. The first thing that kind of opens up the festival, of all things, is a cocktail competition. So, I know, I can hear the pep in your step.
Cocktails and bourbon, I know. There's a place, but it's a small place, a dark place.
So the way this kind of goes down is they actually have area bartenders that come out and construct cocktails that go with a lot of the products, and then there's a small plate that's paired with those, and then there's a competition. They have a judging right there in the middle of the festival, and then they actually award. And we're going to kind of go through the winners as well as play some of the clips from each of those announcements as well, so you get to hear them just pretty much the same way we did, except I'm not as hammered as I was when they were announcing the winners this time around.
You get a start on it.
I am willing to start. All right, first up, we have to talk about what each of us is sipping. We have not discussed it prior to turning on the tape for tonight. Like tape, we're turning on the recording. So I am drinking a product we're going to talk a little bit about later, which is Michter's 10 and I'm actually tasting the 2014 version. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2015 version a little bit later. Zane, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I am very jealous. I have some Old Forester Signature right here, and I also have a glass of Evan Williams 10-year vintage.
Well, there you go. So some really great stuff, definitely for the two of us to sip a bit while we're enjoying, that's for sure. So the cocktail competition had some very interesting combinations. All right, so first off, was there one that you liked, Zane, that you remember?
My memory was too much.
He's searching and he's going, no, that is not something that was memorable. Like, oh, come on. So, I mean, do you remember, was there a lot of bitters? Was there a lot of ginger? Was there a lot of salt? Or, there were a lot of crazy things that were going on.
I remember the pepper. And thinking, who puts pepper in bourbon?
Absolutely. So this was a cocktail that was served up at the Four Roses Bourbon team, and actually was called the Pepper Twister. And yeah, I had a very difficult time getting through the drink. I think I even had like half a sip, and that was all I could muster out of that. And we're going to have a grand debate over the gentleman's name who made this. All right, so those of you that'd like to know how to pronounce this gentleman's name, go ahead, right on in. In the meantime, Zane and I are actually going to make fun of it. So it's Euan. So that's not Juan.
Han?
It's not Juan. So it is Yuan. Un. We're going to stick with that. And it sounds like that's a winner for tonight. That's for sure. So we're sorry that we've probably insulted your family, your heritage. I'm sure that you have a lovely pronunciation of your name.
And a lovely waxed mustache.
And a lovely bow tie to go with that. So it's a requirement. So
possibly a striped dicky,
Yeah, so I mean, how would that go down, Zane? I mean, you instead of having your stripper name, you'd have to come up with your bartender name. So, what would be your bartender name then?
Does it have to be like a 20s vaudeville-ish bartender name?
It has to be something that can't be pronounced, apparently. I'm going to let you think about that while I read out some of these winners. So, from the cocktail classic, or the cocktail competition at the Bourbon Classic, here were a couple of winners. I'm going to read a couple, and then I actually have the clips of some of the announcements. I'm sorry, there were a couple of them that were not worthy of. The quality was not good.
I think you could call me Heqtor, but there's got to be a Q in there somewhere.
Heqtor.
Heqtor.
I like that. That would be pretty good. All right, so the best classic cocktail was the Deschler featuring Heaven Hills Bourbon, and it was made by Michael Anderson for Butcher and the Rye, which is based out of Pittsburgh. The small plate, the classic small plate, was a charred onion short rib. I actually had that. It was very tasty. The chef was Mike Wada, W-A-J-D-A. That probably goes with Heqtor. He's from Proof on Maine, representing Heaven Hills Bourbon. And then we're getting into some of the clips that I have here. So this is the best classic pairing.
So now we're going to do the best classic pairing, and that goes to the team with Barton 792 Distillery. And that team is David Cook from Maine, and Chef Josh Truce from the Harrison Smithhouse Car Shop. Come on!
Yeah, so if you didn't hear that, it was Damien Cook from Proof on Maine was the drink. It was a Boulevardier. And then the dish was a barbecue pork terrine with celery seed, slaw, and bourbon pickles. I think I missed it. Oh, yeah, that's it. So the next award that was given was for the best contemporary cocktail, and here's that award.
I'm going to do this the correct way this time. So we're going to start with the best contemporary cocktail. That goes to the team from Michter's Distillery. And our bartender is Beth Burrows and Family Bourbon Bar. Come on up.
Hey, how about that? So that was Dr. No's Bubbly featuring Michter's Bourbon, Beth Burrows from Downwind Bourbon Bar. And the next award up was for the best contemporary small plate. And here's that clip.
Best contemporary small plate. All right. So we're going to go to that goes to the team from Barton 792 Distillery. 17 today. Josh with the Harrison's Party.
So that was a smoked catfish terrine with a garlic potato soup with croutons. Potato soup with croutons. Okay. It was Chef Josh Smouse. Smouse. What is with these people? Heqtor Smouse.
Smouse. Heqtor Smouse with the garlic and potato soup.
I mean, he's from Bardstown. Could you imagine walking around Bardstown and going, "Are you Mr. Smouse?"
Yeah, it doesn't really fit with the local culture too much, but hey, I'm sure he's a great guy. I mean, he makes a smoked catfish terrine. Who does that?
There you go. Well, we got one more, which was actually the best contemporary pairing, and here's that award.
That team is Ewan Watson with Bistro 1860 and Chef Michael Crouch also with Bistro's 1860.
So that actually happened to be the pepper twister that we talked about, and the dish was actually a sous vide beef short rib with black pepper and cider glaze, and that was actually very tasty. I like the dish. Did not like the drink. So, well, there you have a quick roundup of the cocktail competition. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in just 1 minute. Hey, welcome back to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. This is good old boy Mike. Joining me today is good old boy Zane.
Hey.
And we're having some fun talking about the Bourbon Classic, and we've arrived at one alternative bartender name, so Heqtor.
With a Q.
Yeah, with a Q. That's important. And so I've decided that mine is going to be Lupipi. That is my... That's my bartender name. Go pee pee. I have an old fashioned. You just can't script this high quality entertainment, can you?
No.
Well, we definitely need to get to some bourbon. Zane gets the honors of going over our sips ratings for today. Take it away, Zane.
All right, well, we'll be tasting and discussing these bourbons and rating them with the sips rating plus our signature sounds. Here are those ratings now. Number 1, give me a glass of water to wash out my mouth.
Water.
I think that's exactly how I felt after having the pepper bourbon cocktail.
Mm-hmm. Pepper and... Who puts pepper in bourbon? It's just...
It's not right.
All right. Number 2, nice, but what else do you have?
Well, isn't that nice?
3, that's interesting, but what was this again?
Interesting.
4, let's keep this a secret to ourselves, and pour me another.
That's classified.
I said that quite a bit that evening.
There was a lot of 4s in that mix. There was a very good event. I'd say the average was above average.
Mm-hmm. And one more.
All right. Yes, 5. Oh my, I was unaware anything could be this good.
Oh my goodness!
Yes!
Thanks.
And there were bourbons that made you sound like that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, there were a lot of things that both people watching that you got that same reaction as well. Well, rather amazing array of local brands, and I was about just as shocked about who was not there at this festival. And not making any appearance were the likes of Willet, not there.
This is surprising.
Yeah, I know. Angel's Envy, not there. I know where Wes was. Practically all of Diageo, they were. I don't think they were there at all. Did you see any of their brands? I didn't.
I thought maybe they was Four Roses, but maybe it was just a poster. I didn't actually see or try any of their bourbons, so I don't know that they actually were present.
Yeah. And Sazerac was nearly completely absent. I mean, you only had like one of their brands there.
You had Barton's and did they even have Buffalo Trace?
They
remember.
They had they did have Buffalo Trace in the.
But they had Bullet.
That's correct. I forgot. So they did have a pretty good round out.
Okay,
but,
showing.
All right, so
three of their brands.
That's not bad. So I'm not going to give them half a buzz. So we're going to kind of ping pong back and forth with a couple of our top choices from the festival itself. Let's see. Who has the cooler bartender name? Heqtor or La Pipi?
La Pipi is... there's so many ways you can take that.
I
right?
know, yeah. I mean, I would like a daiquiri La Pipi. It doesn't work, does it?
No.
But you know what? If I had a wax mustache, it would totally work. Okay,
it would totally work. You gotta have the wax mustache like the guys at the Bourbon
Absolutely.
Classic.
I think that's the only way that would actually go down correctly. Well, I'll go first, and then we'll ping pong back and forth. So I'm going to start off by talking about a product that we have not reviewed on the show yet. So we've talked kind of around some of these products. So my first choice that I want to talk about, these are in no order. It's not like 1, 2, and 3. It's just three things we're talking about. So it's Michter's 10. The 2015 edition is going to be the first product that I thought that I kind of chat about. So while we've covered the 2014 edition, and that's actually the one I'm sipping here tonight as one of our top sips for 2014, the 2015 actually continues this great run. This is still a source product, although it is a single barrel. Some of my tasting notes are that the honey tends to give way to a delicate spice element with this well-balanced oak. And this bourbon is all about balance. The shocking surprise on this 120 proof product is really the finish. There's just practically zero burn coming off the back end of this. And it's one of the few barrel proof products that I actually just love neat. With no water or a cube of ice or anything. I love it just as it comes out of the bottle. My sips rating for this actually is a 5.
Oh my goodness!
Yes!
Big surprise, right?
Well, and you talk about, the barrel proof and no burn, and that's such a rare thing to find. I mean, you look at Booker's, you look at Stag Junior, any of the other barrel proof bourbons out there, and drinking it neat it volatilizes as soon as it hits your tongue, right? I mean, you're basically just inhaling alcohol vapors at that point.
With a lot of barrel proof products, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's rare to see one that is actually like drinkable, like truly drinkable straight up. And I think that alone merits the rating.
Wow, it was really awesome, and I actually got to meet Pamela, the distiller, there that evening, and got to tell her how much we've enjoyed all the really great products, and I'm looking forward to their juice coming online. I really, I'm probably going to talk about some of the products that's made with their own juice and not sourced, pretty soon. So, Zane, what's up first for you to chat about?
Well, as you know, we had a lot of overlap in our favorites, but one that wasn't mentioned was the Evan Williams 10-year vintage. I would say that the 2016 version maybe isn't quite what the 2015 was, but still one of my favorite bourbons, and they provided a good showing again this year. Lots of spice, lots of caramel, but what I always find with this one is that The spice, it's almost like an inverted apple pie. You think of an apple pie, it's got lots of apples and it's got a little cinnamon and clove. Well, this is like cinnamon and some allspice and maybe a little clove with a little bit of apples in it. So it's sort of like an apple pie a la mode turned on its head with caramel sauce and a little creaminess to it. It's always one that I like a lot. I think I'll give this one a. I think I'd give this one a 4.
All right, how about that?
That's
A 4.
classified.
Well, we're out of the chute, finally talking about some bourbon, which means that I'm sipping as we're going along, which is a really good thing.
It's always a good thing.
I'm sure that my stage name will probably improve by the end of the episode as well. We'll see. Probably not. Well, up next for me is also talking about another product that was available in the VIP area, which was they were serving all the Buffalo Trace products, and they pulled out the Eagle Rare 2015 edition for everybody. So this is not the single barrel version. This is just the regular Eagle Rare product that we got to taste that evening. But I had not had the 2015, blend, or it's not a blend, but I just had not had the 2015 product. So here's a couple of my tasting notes around Eagle Rare 2015. The palate is simplistically sweet without a ton of depth. Upfront notes of honey, toasted brown sugar, kind of new oak, and light traces of white pepper. I don't know that you can always distinguish white and black pepper, but in this case, it seemed to lend itself for that description. It's not really deep. It's very tasty. I would probably imagine that even non-bourbon drinkers would probably find this quite enjoyable. I found myself actually going back to sip this quite a bit. Sometimes, the festivals, you get really small portions to kind of sip on, and this was one of the few things that I actually went back and got another glass of to kind of taste it. It really was kind of sweet, on the palate overall, and I thought it was very tasty.
Do you think that they've been getting sweeter over the years? I've noticed this trend with Eagle Rare.
Yeah, I do think that's part of their mash bill that's kicking up as well. So, some of the other things around the finish that I wrote was kind of medium in length. It was kind of predominant with bubblegum, toffee, and honey. Like I said, it wasn't really bad. It wasn't like super memorable either. I just thought it was a solid, really solid bourbon. I give the Eagle Rare 2015 a 3.
Interesting.
So what's up for next for you, Zane?
Well, I've got to talk about one of my favorites that I had, which was the Town Branch Rye. And I think that one of the reasons why that was my favorite was just because of how shocking it is. I'm not a fan of Town Branch bourbon. I think that they have a product that's way too sweet and lacking in depth and character. But their rye whiskey was something else. It was still fairly sweet. It had a high corn percent, but was not. It still had more of the dryness that you would expect from a rye over a bourbon. Great. You didn't get it in the nose, but once you get down into the drink, the great rye spiciness, right? The pepperiness, a little bit of that herbal character coming through. A lot of depth of finish with a nice kind of earthy aftertaste. I really like that a lot, and I think that as a surprise, showing, I was impressed. I would give that one probably a 5.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah!
Well, I think what's really great is we actually got to enjoy this together. I mean, we're kind of walking around, on the floor, both together and then apart, at times. And this was actually a product that both you and I kind of walked up and enjoyed at the same time. And I think what was cool is you actually got to see my reaction tasting this for the first time. And all right, so listen, I am not a rye guy. I just there are some rye whiskeys that I do enjoy, but I would say all in all, it's it's a little. I kind of have to grin and get my way through it. So
Which is funny because we're opposite in that respect. Where
I know.
I'm very much, I want high rye bourbons. I like rye whiskey.
yeah. Well, so I was actually told this is kind of a high corn, percentage, somewhat in keeping with the pattern set by the distillery's, high corn town branch bourbon that we talked a little bit about. That actually showed on the nose. It had kind of notes of sweet tobacco and a little musty wood kind of off of it, and only the tiniest hint of rye spice. In the glass, I really thought the color off this was awesome. It was very much right on spot. The flavor was kind of sweet tobacco, kind of woody flavors, plus some spice that kind of mixed together. It kind of reminded me of like a thick cookie that had like a little bit of ginger off of it. So just as all those flavors kind of came across, there was just this solid spicy kick, and it wasn't off-putting as well. So when I actually took my first sip after smelling and taking in all the aromas and stuff, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely a rye. So I think the one thing that I really loved about the finish, it had kind of like this tobacco barn like aftertaste. And I think what really caught me off guard is, so after hearing the explanation of this was a very corn forward, kind of product, I was really expecting this to be just a hot, peppery mess. I thought this was just going to be a rye bomb, spit right out of Canada. And I was just, I was like, wow. I was really pleasantly surprised. I really loved this product. It was probably one of my favorite new finds of the entire festival. And I'm giving this a sips rating of 4.
That's classified.
Yeah, so really great product. And I actually, kind of checked a few spot liquor stores on a bit of my journey back and did find it, widely available in Kentucky. Although when I actually arrived back in the Tennessee market, I didn't find one bottle. So that's really quite unfortunate. I did find...
I have to bring you one.
I know, yeah, which makes me mad that I didn't buy one. But I'm sure that I did find a bunch of the Town Branch bourbon kind of all over the place. So I only checked a couple of stores. It may be in the Tennessee market, and it's just, where I was looking at in the store or something like that. It was definitely, I was looking all over the rise there. All right, so let's see. I think I'm up now. I already talked about all three of mine. So what's your last pick there, good old boy Zane?
Well, I had the Russell's Reserve 10-year, and I gotta say, the guys from Wild Turkey, they make a consistently decent showing with that. If you're somebody who is not into exotic bourbons and you're not necessarily into something that has very distinctive taste, you just want that classic kind of vanilla caramel oak kind of taste. You can't go wrong with the stuff that the guys at Wild Turkey are putting out with Russell's Reserve 10-year.
Yeah, a really great product that they've brought on the market with that whole line. Definitely the 1998 is definitely something I've caught quite a bit of as it's come available. Man, that is a steep price on that thing, though. Holy crap. It's just like...
It's pretty pricey, and you're not getting necessarily the same complexity that you're getting out of some of the other ones at a comparable price. What you're getting is the bourbon that someone who's maybe not a bourbon drinker would enjoy sipping.
Definitely. So what was it about the Russell's 10 that you enjoyed, so much over, some of the other things out of that product line?
I wouldn't say that it was something that I particularly... I would probably give it a 3
All right.
rating.
Interesting.
But I would just say kind of the consistency. I think the reason why I would not pick something else that was higher was just because I didn't get the opportunity to try some of the other ones that maybe would have stood out. The ones that I did try, I was kind of like, okay, not great,
So you and I got to kind of turn and pivot and actually try what I would consider, which one of these things is not like the other, bourbons. It was actually directly across from the Town Branch Rye.
Certainly the flavored stuff, the Boltons.
Yeah, no, we're not going to talk about that tonight. Definitely not. So the one product that kind of caught our attention was actually the bourbon from Kings County.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is actually made in New York. The distiller Colin Spolman was actually right there. It was actually part of the presentation, like right before the grand tasting actually started. So we got to see him on stage, but it was good to come down and actually chat with him. And so there's actually another bourbon, a couple of other ones that we're going to have on another show, which is both Hudson's as well as Pine Barrens. Are a couple of other craft distilleries in the area that we're going to actually have a different show. But it was kind of cool to try that. It was good. It wasn't great, but it was good, wasn't it?
It was good. It was not what you typically see out of your Kentucky bourbons. It may be that they're using a different water.
Yeah.
But it was pleasing. I mean, they had a good, solid product. A little different than what you normally expect out of a Kentucky bourbon, because it's not a Kentucky bourbon, it's a New York bourbon.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to actually covering more of that product line on a future show, but it was kind of cool to definitely check that out. Well, that covers a bit of some of our top 3 and some interesting products. And listen, we're going to take another break here. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about some of the things that we didn't like on the floor after the segment break. Hey, welcome back to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Today's Sips episode is talking about the Bourbon Classic Festival that was held in Louisville, Kentucky, and choosing your favorite bartender name, Lou Pepe.
And I'm Heqtor with a Q.
This is good old boy Mike and good old boy Zane with the last segment for our episode here. We've just chatted about some things that we enjoyed on the floor, and I thought we'd take a walk on the other side of the coin and kind of talk about some things that were just not quite what I was thinking they were going to be. So I thought that I'd start off hammering something. I'm sorry. I thought that I'd start off talking about a product that's actually, kind of gone through several different gyrations. So the 1792 Ridgemont Reserve single barrel release was one of the products that was being poured actually for the first time in this kind of new packaging. Okay, so I really love the port finish version. Barton did a great job, with the port finish off, this product. Everybody was raving about it. It was like the perfect marriage.
When you look at 1792 Ridgemont Reserve to begin with, it's a very fruity bourbon. It's a wonderful product. It's one of my favorites. Putting it into a port barrel was a stroke of genius because it just enhanced every one of those characters and made it more so. The single barrel, well...
Yeah, that is definitely not working. Yeah. So... so they actually started pouring the single barrel, and I really just found it to be a mess. The spice was out of balance. Even the rye pepper, off of this was just not pleasing. I think that it was just very typical of this brand, for several years. And I know that they changed some of the packaging, of this product, and came out with a new logo and kind of a new bottle and banding and the whole bit. And I just think that they went back to the same old juice and formula that they had been doing, because I just didn't taste anything unique about this at all. So kudos to the port finish, but the single barrel release, no, that definitely did not work for me. So, Zane, anything catch your attention where you went, please, don't pay me, I won't have another sip?
Well, we agreed not to discuss the flavored bourbons that were present.
Yeah, we can just skip those altogether. I don't like Girl Scout bourbon.
They say that there's a shortage of bourbon and that they gotta have more barrels, and they can't let them age long enough. That's why, right there.
I would rather have flavored vodka. It would have been better.
Why are you taking these good barrels of bourbon that could potentially be put into a decent product at some point, and adding sugar and artificial flavorings to it, and then trying to pass that off as a decent liquor?
That's right.
Just wrong in so many ways.
I agree. And with that, I forgot that I should chime in. It's worthy. You can't drink flavored bourbon in the land where you hear my old Kentucky home. There's just some of it is sacrilege. Where they just is like, are you kidding me, man? It's an oatmeal raisin cookie bourbon. What are you thinking, man? So.
They had strawberry rye at the liquor store the other day, and I almost bought it on accident because I saw, this is a rye whiskey I hadn't had before, and then I saw strawberry. I was like, oh, no, stay away.
Does it come with
step back very slowly?
Does it come with one of those Curly Q, straws that you
like
get,
a Twizzler,
with
right?
Maybe if you had one of those bartenders to make a cocktail with one of those flavored bourbons, it would have tasted even worse.
Heqtor made you this.
Lil Pepe's strawberry bourbon.
Oh, that's right.
With a little bit of cream on top.
Oh God.
Well, what was so funny is when you and I were trying the flavored bourbon products, we looked at each other and I was like, "Oh crap, my glass is just screwed for the rest of the night."
It's like coated.
And I don't know who.
It's like a film.
You and I were looking around for a fire hose to try and rinse our glass out with. I was like, I am not smelling a Girl Scout cookie all night long. It is not happening. So yeah, we actually managed to rinse out our glass. But there was actually another product over on that side of the floor that kind of caught my attention as well that I had not had, which was the 1870 Old Forester. So this is a product that I think I know a little of the history, but I'm probably going to screw this up, Zane. So I think that they made this, they took it off the market for a little while, and now it's coming back. Is that part of what went down with this, or the story around this product?
I don't know the whole story. It was
something like that. So
yeah, because it was like I think it was like their premier small batch product, and then they took it off, and then they launched like a new series of small batches that were kind of like all different names.
So it was around some other colleagues at the time. They're like, "Mike, you should try the 1870 Old Forester," and I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, that did not work. I thought that it was just a thin, hot mess. I really thought that this juice was just riding on the historic brand and the previous batch recipe, and definitely for this price point, I mean, it should have been a lot better. I really thought at the end of the day, this was 90% brand and 10% juice. It was just, I was really, quite disappointed all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with Old Forester as a brand. I love their 86, and I'm actually sipping their 100 proof signature right now. But for this product and at the price point that it's at, you would expect it to be in line with like an Elijah Craig or something like that.
Yeah.
And boy, is it lacking.
So I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of the other products, that we got to try this week that were actually outside of the festival itself. And because there were some really good ones that we got to try. So if you happen to catch our other episode, that we got to sit down with some other folks that were from the media covering a lot of what we did. We talked a little bit about what we did at these places, but we didn't actually talk about some of the products. And so I thought I'd spend a little bit more time talking about some of the products as well. We got to go check out Peerless Distillery. So Corky Taylor explained the rich history of this distillery, and this whole place is, just what you think of in a craft distillery. I'm sorry, it's actually the opposite of that. Because with the cost of automated control equipment or programmable logic controllers that sniff, measure temperatures, check volume and weight and everything at every, waking moment. So this is what you find in a lot of the macro distillers, and it is right there at Peerless. So it's kind of like this miniature version of a macro distillery. I thought this was actually going to be another tale of delusions of getting rich on the current bourbon craze and actually, just by selling White Lightning. Well, it's kind of close, as they actually do sell moonshine in like 12 different flavors, but they have been setting back quite a bit, a large quantity of their production actually for bourbon. And Corky actually broke out a couple of bottles and let us actually try their rye, which is about 10 months old. And I was floored on how good this particular product was. It was actually at 100 proof, and I think that the small group of people that I was in, I think all of us said that we would actually buy that in a heartbeat. Compared to some of the other 2-year ryes and 3-year ryes, that I've had, I really thought this had just an incredibly, rich flavor to it. Kudos to Corky. I think it's going to be a great product that's, going to come out of Peerless Distillery. Have you, now I know he hasn't opened up the rye for a lot of public tasting, but is there any other buzz there in town about what they're doing, or is this like a super big secret or something, Zane?
Well, we know about them. It's kind of cool that they're right here. They're pretty local. They're getting buzz, but they haven't actually. They have the moonshine, which hasn't really picked up much steam yet. So people are kind of interested in they're watching them, but there hasn't been a lot of stuff actually released to the marketplace yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, part of what I think is going to be interesting is how they're going to have to choose to undo, what they're doing with, a lot of their moonshine as well, and exposing a lot of themselves to the marketplace, with the moonshine right off the bat.
Sure. If you get in the business of selling White Lightning and, then how do you turn around and say, yes, actually, we do have this really great rye and we have this really great bourbon and you should try them.
Well, another great stop that we got to go to was Copper and Kings with Joe Heron, who is a really funny guy, and I really loved walking around of him constantly reminding us not to start a brandy distillery because you will not get rich. He had this very nice, thick Austrian accent, and he just walked around all day going, this is not a very good idea. If you want to get rich, don't buy a brandy distillery. The rick house being below ground was actually quite unusual, as I've seen brandy age kind of in a variety of conditions. We talked a little bit about this on the other episode. So they have this introduction of the sonic barrel age conditioning was actually a riot. I was laughing so hard. Whether it works or not, I don't know about that. It was quite entertaining though, and it made for a really great story. From the existing lineup that they're making right now, the reserve brandy called Butchertown was really awesome. I really love that product, and I can easily say that's a 4, in my book. This is a product you can buy today in a lot of places, and I think worthy of a lot of shelves to pick up that product. Have you tried the Butchertown?
Yeah, Copper and Kings makes a great product, and I'm not a brandy drinker or brandy fan at all.
Yeah,
but they've made several products that have come out of there that have been very impressive, very tasty, and we're proud to have them local.
Yeah, so here are a few of the tasting notes that I wrote down. Okay, bourbon lovers, looks like you're going for your favorite sip. because this is kind of vanilla and light caramel from the time it's in the barrel, and it gets a good dose of crisp apple and pear and floral notes actually emerging if you sniff it over ice, which I would not do that, by the way. Yeah, I really like this product neat for the most part.
Brandy and ice is just a bad idea to begin with.
Well, it's kind of interesting how they actually serve that for us and showing us how, that product changes with the introduction of water, and especially with the change in temperature. They made this little aperitif, right there on the fly with just some mint, some of the absinthe that they had, and a little bit of water and ice, and man, it was awesome. I really loved it. But definitely the reserve brandy was really very smooth, and that was the one. Excuse me. That was actually the one word that I heard a lot of people kicking in. There's just very well balanced, and for a lot of people that have been drinking all day, to say that they really loved it, I thought was really quite surprising. So we hope to really kind of cover a full lineup of all the Copper and King product lines, because it is quite vast. I mean, you had, I don't know, like 12, 14 different products, and so. And they actually broke out a brand new product line for us, and we talked about this briefly on the other show, but we actually didn't talk about it in detail, and kind of which ones that we all really loved as well. So I have this really unique concept called the Kraftwerks, as how Joe said, the Kraftwerks line on aging brandy in a beer barrel that was actually once a bourbon barrel. So that's why you heard Chris chiming in going, it's a brandy in a beer barrel that's a bourbon barrel. So it's a brandy beer barrel, bourbon barrel product. You maybe need.
There should be one word for that. Bourbon brandy.
It's Le Pepe.
Le Pepe. Le Pepe.
So there were a variety of products, and I thought that kind of gave the quick rundown of these. So, and a lot of these names you'll recognize. For those of you that certainly love beer products, the first one is Three Floyds Dark Lord Russian Imperial Stout. This is definitely a very difficult beer to find. You can only get Dark Lord if you go to the Dark Lord Festival. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of interesting that they actually snagged a few of these barrels. It's the first time that I actually had heard anybody actually reusing, those barrels at all. And so I thought that was a very interesting choice. The next one was the Sierra Nevada Smoked Imperial Porter. A lot of people know Sierra Nevada, but maybe you don't know quite, that Smoked Imperial Porter product as much as it's in their lineup, but
it's hard to find, though.
Yeah, it is, for sure. And the last one is the Oscar Blues Goodnight, and then the next one is the Against the Grain McFanny Bob in a peated Scottish ale. And I really love the Imperial Porter. That was my favorite, out of the whole lineup for sure. Well, yeah, it was a really cool, place to hang out there at Kraftwerks, and it was interesting how Joe, really talked about that whole place has been almost constructed as an event venue, kind of even from the get-go, and I thought that was, quite a innovative move and some way of, moving cash, kind of in there.
I love the way that they've taken all the reclaimed wood off Whiskey Row and all those old abandoned buildings and then turned it into something new.
Yeah, it's definitely, we definitely use the word hipster quite a bit as we were walking around.
It certainly is a hipster place, right? A brandy distillery in the middle of bourbon country.
As Joe said, look at that monarch butterfly sanctuary here. It's like, okay, all right. That's not something you see every day at a distillery for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, really great time, at this festival. And, I really had a great time, chatting about it today for sure. So let's go ahead and close our episode out for today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and you can catch all of our episodes online on SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, PRX, and Spreaker, our native media host. iTunes and our own Android app are the easiest ways to enjoy the show on your phone. Just search for Sip Suds Smoke on iTunes or in the Google Play Store. We love your feedback, and you can reach us online at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our daily tasting notes flow out on Twitter every single day. Our handle on Twitter is @SipSudsSmoke, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news. Do us a favor and take the time to rate this episode if you're listening to us online. That's a great big help to us. And we get to see your feedback as well. Please do not rate my bartender name. Yo Pepe. I think that would be, maybe that's a contest, that we should run, Zane,
The bartender names, I like that contest.
And rate a wax mustache. I think that would be, a requirement for sure.
I think as a Facebook contest, you submit your photo, you post it up on the Facebook page. Right.
Yeah, I don't do well with photography. That's why this is a radio show.
I didn't mean us. I meant our listeners.
Oh, well, that's true. That would be kind of interesting. I don't know. Some of our listeners are a little scary.
You're going to get that crowd.
Well, it was a real pleasure spending a lot of time with a lot of great folks there in Louisville. Zane, it was really great to run into you, man, and I hope we'll have you on some more shows in the very near future.
Absolutely. I'm always happy to go to local events and talk about them on the radio.
That involve drinking bourbon for
especially bourbon,
4 solid
beer,
days.
Gin, you name it.
Well, it's good old Mike. Asking you to keep on sipping. Come back and join us once again.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sip, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.